everyone, and welcome to today's video. So today's video is a book review, and I'd like to be very upfront and honest that I was provided this book free of charge on netgallery.com through Kensington Books as a thank you for doing this review. So let's get started. Reviewing today is called The Titanic Sisters by Patricia Falvey. And I really apologize because I know I butchered that name more than once. Okay, again, I have a disclaimer that I was provided this book free of charge in exchange for this review. So when I first looked at the title, I thought I knew how the book was going to go. Two sisters board the Titanic. One doesn't make it, the other one assumes her identity, and that does kind of seem how the book is going to go. And like just from the title, before when I submitted to review it, I thought I knew how the book would end. I honestly did. I was like, I'm going to review it, but I know how this book is going to go. Didn't go quite as I thought. So two sisters, Delia and Nora, live in the small town of Donegal, and I know I butchered that, bad Irish girl, England. The book begins in the year of 1911, where you meet these two women who couldn't be more different if they tried. Nora loves the land and her da, which is father, and has a very difficult relationship with her mother. Delia was a twin, and her brother died at birth, and Ma believes, with influence from outside sources as well, which is very sad, that Delia is a changeling, which in Ireland means a fairy baby. A fairy has taken the child and replaced with one of theirs, and treats her very, very badly. You really feel bad for Delia in the story. Really, if they didn't specifically tell you that Delia was her daughter, you might think she was just like a servant living in the house. Nora is the older sister. She is doted on by Ma. She has the finest of everything. So here's the 2021 breakdown for you. Nora is the popular crowd. Delia is the loser crowd. There you go. So at the beginning of the book, a letter from Ma has arrived from America, which is a very, very big deal. The letter states that a cousin has passed away, leaving behind a husband and a young daughter. The husband is looking for a governess. And a governess is like a nanny. It's kind of like a homeschooling nanny, which is pretty much what a nanny does. Ma is ecstatic. The gentleman has sent a ticket for first class passage with some extra money for aboard the Titanic Sisters. Ma, of course, puts Nora ahead of Delia. Even though of the two sisters, Nora actually has more problems with learning, and Delia actually knows more because Delia actually pursued reading more instead of being out at parties and dances. Her teachers brought her more like upper class books. Maybe comparatively, like when I was in middle school, I was reading high school, college level books. So Nora is very excited about this opportunity because Ma is convincing her she can woo the widower and take over, instead of a governess, become a wife in high society in New York. Delia, once hearing that Nora, of course, is going to be the one going to America, leaves and goes sets in the fields. Her da follows her and asks her if she really wants to go to America. Of course she replies yes. She's like pretty much thinking anywhere's better than here. I mean, at least maybe over there I'll be treated halfway decently. So Da goes to the parish father and says, is there any way that you can find work for Delia over in America? The father of the parish finds work for her as a lowly servant, which is pretty much exactly what she is now. Da takes the first class ticket to the parish father, who then takes it and exchanges it for two passages to New York on steerage of the Titanic as opposed to one of first class. Of course, Ma and Nora are infuriated by this, and Nora seems to think that Delia is trying to steal her life. Not yet, Nora. We haven't got that far yet. So finally, it is time for them to board the Titanic. Delia and Nora board where they are both headed to start new lives. Nora, who will live the life of luxury that she's been accustomed to and pretty much been treated to by Ma at the expense of Delia all of her life. And Delia, who essentially is going to still become a servant. But like I said, really for Delia, isn't this the same as being at home, just in a different town? So their journey is easy up until that last fatal day. So kind of here's where the story turned for me. Almost. We're a little bit farther in, but this is kind of where the story really turned. Nora has many admirers on the ship. She's very beautiful. She's very outgoing. She's very bubbly. She's very vivacious. And Delia kind of just sits in the background, just quietly observing. One of her admirers happens to be a first-class steward named Robert. And on the fated day, Robert has actually snuck Nora upstairs to the first-class level. And she has gotten to eat in the dining area for the first class passengers and admiring all the finery. And she's angry with Delia because Delia has essentially taken this away from her. Because this is where Nora would have been the whole trip if it wasn't for Delia. In her mind. So after she eats, she comes back down and lays down. And so as the day passes, it's time for bed. And Delia hears something. It startles her awake. All of a sudden, Robert is rushing into their room with life jackets, stating that they have to get a lifeboat. Nora and Robert run off, and Delia is actually kind of left behind. But Delia has the sense of mind, even in panic, to grab the small satchel that she had that had their identity papers, it had money, it had her books, and take it with her. And let me tell you, this woman, if it had been me, I would have had a death grip on this paper. But then again, I would have had a death grip on my sister even if I didn't like my sister, I would have had a death grip on her, and she was not leaving my sight. But that is not how the book goes. So this is kind of where the sisters end up separating, because the whole time, and the book is written both points of view. You're going to see Delia's point of view and Nora's point of view, and it does go back and forth. So this is where, and you've kind of seen Delia and Nora together the whole time up until this point. This is where they split. So to me, it seems that fate is trying to repair the damage that Ma has done in the first place by sending Nora over Delia to be the governess. Because really, Delia, being the smarter of the two sisters, should have been the governess. But in Ma's head, it was a very, very short step from governess to married woman. So after a series of events that take place during this fateful night, and the confusion, and in the boats, and in the water, Nora is now presumed dead. Delia is taken aboard the Carpathia. As we all know, the Carpathia is the ship that came and rescued all of those survivors. A kindly steward tells her the logbook man, he's come around and taken everyone's name, who is a survivor of the Titanic. He tells her, go tell them that you are in second class, so that she didn't have to stay on the boat any longer than she had to. She's getting off the boat, and she tells him that she doesn't have her papers, and that she was in second class. And the gentleman just kind of shakes his head and motions her along, even though he knew by her clothes, obviously, that she had been a steerage passenger. But at that point, I think everyone was kind of on the same playing field at that point. Women had lost their husbands, their children, they didn't know where family was. Everyone kind of ended up on the same playing field coming off the Carpathia. She bypasses the sign that has her name on it and goes to tell the employer that Nora has died. But instead of saying, I am Nora Sweeney's sister, she says, I am Nora Sweeney. And this is where kind of the turn, where we've turned, and that's where we're at. So, unknown to Delia, unknown to anyone, Nora has actually survived. Nora has been injured. Nora started having a panic attack pretty much in the lifeboat on the water, stands up, falls in the water, gets knocked in the back of the head. Amnesia. So not only does she have amnesia, she doesn't know who she is, where she is, who, what, when, where, why is out the window. She also doesn't have papers. And her brain is also protecting her from the traumatic events of the nights of the Titanic. So her memories are gone. Everything. She is rescued by a wonderful widow named Mrs. Shaw. Mrs. Shaw loves and dotes on Nora as if she is her only child. Her husband is gone. Her children are gone and grown. Her daughter has died. And so Mrs. Shaw kind of takes Nora on as a project. Mrs. Shaw is involved in many, many things, and one of them being protesting for factory workers' rights. And so she takes Nora, as Nora is feeling better, because Nora has been convalescing out in the country at her home. She takes Nora to one of these marches, and Nora, who has been this nose in the air, doesn't care about anyone else, is finally seeing some of the undercurrents and some of the way things are for other people instead of just thinking about herself. So Nora is learning. So Nora and Delia have essentially changed lives. Delia is now posing as Nora, settling into the life that was not supposed to be hers, but really wasn't supposed to be hers initially anyway. Here is the question. If Ma, Da, Delia, and Nora all had been in a good relationship, if the twin wasn't ever there, would Ma have given Delia the opportunity over Nora? Or would she have still had the first class ticket sold so both of her daughters could leave Ireland and go seek a better opportunity in the United States? So the situation takes another turn when one of the other staff at the mansion where Delia is working gives a letter to the master of the home, who has, with a photo of the real Nora in it, from their ma in Ireland, asking if it's true that Nora has perished. And this is her photo. Things aren't looking so hot for Delia at the moment, because she's had plenty of opportunities to confess and say, look, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I think anyone would be absolutely traumatized at the point where she was, and they would have said, you know, maybe he would have been mad, maybe he would have been upset, but this has gone on for a while now. So this is taking a turn. Mrs. Shaw has passed away in an automobile accident. There's been some other situations happening, which I don't want to spoil because it really shows. I want you to read the book and see the progression that Nora makes into who she becomes at the end of the book. Delia is saved from being banished from the home that she's been living in for months by Lily. Lily is the daughter in this story. And she has been mute ever since her mother's death. She hasn't talked. She smiles. She draw you pictures. She was very, very timid and very, very hesitant to get close to someone. But all of a sudden, Lily speaks. Lily's like, I'm not letting her go. I love Miss Delia. She's staying with me. I think at that point, hearing his daughter's voice for the first time in so long, he would have given her the moon if she had asked. So Delia stays on as Lily's governess, and they all go down to Texas, because Texas is where they actually end up wanting to be anyway, because the husband, and I'm not giving away all the names, I really do want you to read the book, is working on finding oil. He is an oil searcher, I guess is a word that you could use. The father-in-law, Mary is the wife that has passed away. Her father is making it very hard for him to take Lily to Texas. So the father-in-law devises a plan when Nora arrives in New York. Nora has arrived in New York after being months back in Ireland. She is convinced by a childhood friend who paves the way for her to go back to America. He encourages her. He teaches her how to swim while he is home for a brief time. And she gets back. She gets on a boat and goes back to America and goes to the address of where she should have went to work in the first place. Here comes the father-in-law with this scheme to ruin his son-in-law's oil business, to ruin his life, and to essentially kidnap his granddaughter and bring her back to New York so he can raise her the way he thinks that she should be raised. So how does the book end? Well, that is just something that you yourself are going to have to do. You're going to have to read the book. I guess that is doing something. So the book comes out today. And so make sure to go online and buy it. Go to your local bookstore and buy it. The Titanic Sisters. It leaves you with a cliffhanger at the end. I'm really hoping that there is a book 2 because there's so many questions that are left unanswered. What happens with Delia? What happens with Nora? Do they find the happiness that they both so deserve? So that is it for today's video. Thank you again so much to the author Patricia Falvey. Again, I apologize for butchering the name. At Kensington Books and NetGallery.com for this amazing opportunity.